New version of LineSmarts has just been released, version 27, and includes a whole bunch of improvements that we've been working on for some time, and they're really big improvements that we think people will like. These include a new simplified user interface. There's also the ability to save and send LineSmarts measurements. There's an automated conductor detection feature. You can now have ground clearance assessment, falling tree clearance assessment, and blowout clearance assessment to trees, vegetation, and structures. And finally, we've implemented a way of bulk licensing LineSmarts for organizations. So what I'm going to do in this video is just show you through a few of these new features. If we look at the examples here, the first thing we can see is the whole interface. If you've used LineSmarts previously, it's a lot cleaner than it was. And if we look at this measurement here, which is exactly what you'd get if you were to first take a LineSmarts measurement, you can see, well, the first thing you'll see is that the button is gone. In many of the LineSmarts screens previously, there were buttons, but now if you're wanting to define anything in an image, where the structures are, for example, you just click on that image. And what's more, we've now got this red border around the image, showing that nothing has been defined inside the image yet. And also for this left support range here and the right support range, there's this red exclamation mark. And the idea here is it's making it really clear the information that absolutely really needs to be added in order to make any meaningful calculations with LineSmarts. So just making it a lot simpler. Now, another feature that we've added is this ability to save and send measurements. So if we hold down on this, you can see there's an export feature down at the bottom here. And that asks you, when you do that, whether you want to send the measurement via email or save it to hard drive. And say you go and send it via email, that means that the person that you email it to, if they've got LineSmarts, they'll be able to open up the measurement and view it for themselves. And so that's really handy. For example, if you've got someone out in the field and you want them to collect a LineSmarts measurement, they can then email it to you, and it means you don't need to go and do that site visit to get those dimensions you need or measure that tension that you require. Also, it means that you can then go and save that measurement in a database for use later on. You might be able to, for example, measure a whole lot of things in your network as part of your condition assessment, and have those LineSmarts files sitting there on your hard drive at work, and just for when you need to access information about a particular structure. Now, another really good feature that we've added here is the ability to automatically detect the wires. So this is still, it's a first cut, but we expect it to improve. What you do, you've got this wand here. If you click on that, you can zoom in and then just hit that button and swipe across the wires, and it detects your wires. And so it's working pretty well now, but over time we'll make it faster and more accurate. And when you go back, you just select the type of conductor that from your list of conductors, and it will then create those conductors for you. So there you see all the conductors that have been created for that particular line. Now, another great feature that we've added is the ability to measure ground clearances. So if we look in this span, we can see, first of all, you can check out the ground profile. So you'll define a ground profile, and that's the line of the ground beneath the wires within the span, and then you can go to ground clearances once that's been done. And in this case here, if we go to the minimum measurement position, and so what that's showing you is the minimum clearance, 6.9 meters of that span. And so that's taking in all the different wires that have been considered. You could select a specific wire, the minimum position within the span, and it's looking at all the different load cases that you've got selected. And so you could be more specific about that. You could check it out for the actual surveyed condition, and you can see that the ground clearance there is actually 7.3 meters. Also, you can manually select in the span where you'd like to measure your conductor height, and it'll do that for you as well. So that's ground clearances. The final big feature that we've added to LineSmarts is the ability to measure what we're calling the line environment. So things that occur in the line environment, things like trees and buildings and what have you. In this case here, we've got an example showing a falling tree. So we've got here a measurement for a falling tree. If we select on that, you can see that that falling tree, if we zoom in here, it comprises of a base point about which the tree can rotate and a couple of points up the tree. You could add more points, but if we go back here, you can take a look at these points here down the bottom, and that's where you go and select them. And you can see that the top one is showing negative 8.6 meters, and then this brown one that's halfway up the tree is 6.3 meters. So to make sense of that, if we go back, what you can see is you've got that orange line that's fallen across the wire. So that negative 8.6 meters represents the worst case, that being the top point on the tree. And negative 8.6 meters is the amount of tree that's left over once it struck the wire. In this case here, however, we've specifically referred to that yellow wire. If we were to go for all of them, it'll find that the worst case is the wire that's closer to the tree, in which case the clearance is negative 10.6 meters. So yeah, you could play around and you could select any of the particular wires that it might strike, but yeah, that one that's closest to the tree obviously is the worst case. So that's falling tree. If we go to a different example, we can show another type of line environmental clearance. So in here, if we go to the line environment, and you can see what it's measuring in this case is the blowout of the wire, so not the tree itself falling. We could show the falling tree for this one, and we can see that the tree does indeed fall across the wire. In this case it's negative 2.3 meters. This tree would strike the wire. But if we go to clearance here, then yeah, it's the wire that's being blown into the tree. And we can see that for the surveyed load case, that the wire is giving a clearance of 966 millimeters. If we change that to the minimum clearance, it'll work out from all the different load cases that are displayed here what the worst clearance is. We can see here that down the bottom here that the worst load case is high wind, and that gives a wire clearance of 700 mil. So if we look in there a bit closer, what we can do is click on this and on the image, and we can zoom in to get a bit of a closer look. Again, as with the falling tree example, the base point of the tree is defined, but also up the tree several points have been defined. And so when the wire is being measured in terms of clearance to that tree, it's looking for the closest of those points that the wire gets to. Not just that wire, all the wires, but obviously the wire that's closest to the tree is going to give you the worst case clearance. So what you could do, or you can look through those various different points to see what the clearances are for all of them. But again, what we can do is we can play around with these load cases, but also you could look at what are the clearances for some of these other wires. And that might be relevant, for example, if you need different clearance requirements for different circuits. So that is our line environment feature that we hope people will find useful. We'll be improving on that as time goes on. It's not just trees, of course. It can be structures, poles, and what have you that you can be looking for clearances to as well.